someone tells them that they are worthless or worth less than others, from where can they derive a sense of value and dignity? And we can ask the reverse as well. When the world around somebody tells them that they are worth more than others, and that they're justified in denying the value and dignity of others, how can they come to realize the lie of that? That others bear just as much dignity and worth as they do. So there's a lot at stake in these questions, in a world where we have a lot of people treating others like objects, as less worthy, with less humanity. A lot of people's sense of self is shaped by messages either of their own superiority or inferiority. And by people, I mean us, as well as them over there, whoever that may be. And the most faithful followers of Jesus through history have cut through the lie of this in their place and time. And in the truest, most God's eye view of the world, taught by Jesus, embodied by Jesus, we are each and all children of the living God. And this means that more, in addition to, more than being children of particular families, which we may come from, more than being products of our social circumstances, as important as those are, our very beings spring from nothing less than the sacred source of all being, God. And this core identity is the deepest source of our essential worth and dignity, as well as a cause for our humility before the essential worth and dignity of others, and our solidarity with each other before the forces that would deny and destroy this truth. So what does it look like to live according to this truth? What does it feel like? It's not exactly easy all the time. And it's helpful to think of people who have seemed to manage to live according to this truth most of the time, at least. Those saints in our lives and in the history of the world as well. And maybe it's somebody, we can think of somebody who has helped us to see that in ourselves and to glimpse that in others as well, this essential worth and dignity. This is something that needs to be experienced for oneself, to be known. I can use all this beautiful language, but it needs to be known and recognized and felt deeply. And for that, we need each other's help. This is transmitted through loving relationships that are there to help us to realize or remember this core truth about ourselves and others, and to keep returning to it as we forget or deny it. So all of that said, this can be hard, right? Especially in a world where sometimes it seems like we have no other choice but to treat at least some people like objects, or as not even being real, especially in a world where it seems that the loudest voices are the most obsessed with superiority and inferiority. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it isn't true. We are each and all, at our core, children of the living God. So this is how contemporary theologian Luther Smith put it in an introduction. I've been really on a Howard Thurman kick, if you haven't noticed. So stay tuned. Luther Smith has this wonderful collection of writings of Howard Thurman, who was a great civil rights leader and Christian thinker from the last century. And he wrote this in this introduction to the thought of Howard Thurman. Beneath the many identities we wear, whether those bestowed by family, friends, or culture, there is in each of us a core identity given by God. And this identity is one's true self. This self is of ultimate worth. It cannot be diminished by the assessment of others. One's own failures may be tragic, let's not forget about that, but the value of the self remains. It can be betrayed, ignored, abused, or forgotten. Still, it is God-given, and it is a worth that remains constant. And as Christians, we know that this is true because of Jesus and what we discover about God when we look to Jesus and follow his way. According to scriptures, we are each and all created in the image of God, and yet humanity has turned away from this truth, wanting to make ourselves out to be gods in our own right and make others out to be just tools for our own desires. And this turning away is an act of great violence against our true natures and certainly violence against God, who this is an attempt to annihilate the reality of God. But we can't annihilate God. And we can't succeed in denying our true natures, even. And this is part of what Jesus showed and represented, who came to fully embody the clearest form of reflection of our source in the divine. So this is beautifully expressed by the saints in our tradition and by some great representatives of this way of Jesus. And I just want to quote, it's beautifully expressed in particular, I have to say, in the Eastern Orthodox Christian world, which I think we in the West may not give as much attention to. There's a lot of treasures to be discovered there. And so I want to just share this from an introduction to the Eastern Orthodox Church by John Anthony McGuckin. All things flow from the overwhelming fact that the divine power and word and fire became personally incarnate within time and space. And our God was shown to us as a humble, suffering servant of mercy. It sets as the goal of all Christian spiritual life the quest for the believer to become a human being. And the realization that in becoming a human being in Christ, the believer becomes deified by the grace of the indwelling presence of the holy. There's a sanctification that goes on. And what this means is that when we look to Christ, we realize that there's always a dimension of ourselves and of others that transcends our place and time, that transcends whatever names or identities or stories other tells about us, or that we tell about ourselves, and that we tell about others as well. And this is more true and powerful than any of the forces that would deny and destroy that image of God within oneself and in others. And this is part of the mystery of the crucifixion and the resurrection. And this is at once profoundly uplifting as well as profoundly humbling as well. It uplifts the lowly and it humbles the high. It is sanctifying of ourselves and others, while it also is admitting our absolute dependence on not ourselves but God. Our very value, dignity, and worth is not something that we have achieved or earned or not. It is this divine source of all life that gives our lives value, regardless of our station and status in life. And now, not all people hold this truth to be self-evident, even those who may bother to claim they do. And even if we are sincere in our commitment to it, this is a challenging truth to live out. It's very challenging. It may even be impossible, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Moment to moment, day by day, year by year, generation by generation, there are very powerful forces and voices that want us to deny this essential humanity in ourselves and in others, but it still is true. And so we need to keep returning to this truth, remembering this truth, rediscovering this truth, re-experiencing this truth. It is life-saving, it is soul-saving. And we need God's help to do this. We need Jesus' help to do this, to resist these forces, to release their hold on us. And the good news is that with Jesus, we have this truth that sets us free, to be as we are originally created to be, one and all beloved children of the living God. And for this, I give thanks to God.